Good evening, I'm Zarganat. Welcome to the studio this evening. And this time, tonight, I remembered to turn my microphone on. Yeah, right, well, now that I've got a microphone on, it's applying pyrography to this shed. So we'll get on with it, I guess. That's the main thing, just get on with it. And the nice things about having a pen where at least the plug and lead is unpluggable, and the fact that it's a circular plug and socket is if the wire doesn't come out quite in the direction that you like, because if it will tend to sort of twist the pen, you can just twist the connector and have the wire coming out in the direction you want. So yeah, it was doing a lot more work up on these things here. One thing to remember when you're doing pyrography like this is that the wood stores heat. So when I'm using the tool flat and I'm going in rows like this, if I'm using it flat, most of the heat's in towards the tip, and I'm preheating the wood nearer the back of the tool. So when I come down, it takes less heat apparently on the front edge to colour the wood. Because it's not taking less heat, what it is it's being preheated by the toe of the tool when I was working above it, which is why I tend to work from the toe backwards when I'm doing things like covering large areas, because it just makes it a bit faster having that preheat. Of course, if you don't want that preheat, then that you've got to be careful of. So, right, yeah. Okay, just deciding if I wanted to switch tools to use something like the writing tip here. This gives me a fine line, as fine if not finer than the knife tip, because that one digs in. But this particular area here, I could do with it being a little bit wider. What I may do is just come down with this and then switch and use the writing tip just to expand out. Could actually do with being a little bit darker, but it's always possible to go over it again. Okay, let the tool heat up a little bit. I am sucking quite a lot of heat right out of the tip. Okay, now the fun bit about this is going to be now shading that in. Let me move over to using a writing tip. Kinda could do with something maybe like a small ball tip here as well. Just because this is a little bit thick. So I'm not pressing, well, I'm trying not to press this against the wood. I'm actually trying to just kiss the wood, just touch it, so that I get quite a fine line. I don't want the what's the word I'm looking for? I don't really want the wood to back away from the tool. I don't want to cause a texture really. I just want to have it not do that. So black blob, I think it's about the first one I've got on this piece of wood. It's something to be really careful of. fact, let's work a little bit cooler with this tool. So I'm getting black blobs. Now, part of that is I'm not used to using this tool. Don't use it very often actually. Perhaps I should use it more, but I'm not. I don't. I tend to work very much with the shader, but there are times when a different tool is better for what it is you're trying to do. And because the shader is quite a large tool, there's a lot of preheat in areas I might not want it if I try and work sideways, or if I try and drag the, just use the tip and drag it, then the preheat's an issue. But also if I try and do lots of lines, then the fact that it generates really thin lines is an issue. So it's kind of a catch-22. Now I do have the advantage with this that it's rounded, edged, and that means it will drag a lot easier, a lot smoother than the hard edge of the shader does. Ironically, I need a little bit more heat here. Now, because I'm trying to be really light, I am creating lots of little tiny lines. So by going backwards over it, as I'm doing here, I'm smoothing out those little lines that I'm creating. The little lines kind of show up, they sort of reflect light differently. Now don't forget, this is a tool with two widths, a thin width using it like that and a fat width using it like that, so, and you can vary in between. So come back to underneath there later. Now then, I kind of could do with getting two different shades down there. Now, two different shades is a really hard thing to do, daft as it sounds. So what we'll start by doing is colouring it all in the lighter shade and then darkening down one half of it. And given that it's a really small area, this will be fun with a capital lowercase f. Now, I'm working against the glare, as I'm sure you are having a problem seeing it as well. And one of these lights is flickering. Is it this one? Yep. There we go. The dimmers in that light, the LED light there, they work by turning it on and off really fast. Which is too fast for your eyes to perceive, so persistence of vision means you just see a steady light. But the camera, with its 50 frames per second, he says, wondering if it actually is, or whether it's doing post-processing, I'm not quite sure, but it's looking out for a 50 cycle flicker. Because it's about the same speed, it's actually capturing some of the times when the LEDs are off and some of the times when they're on. So you're seeing a flicker because of that. It's not something I see here. It's the same effect that when you're taking video pictures of wheels that are spinning, for example, you see them sometimes appear to stop or reverse, go backwards, that sort of thing. Exactly the same effect. It's called a strobe effect. Now, one thing it's worth doing when you're in things like this is occasionally just look away. It's one reason why artists will sometimes do things like turn an artwork around, especially digital artists, or sometimes they'll flip it on screen, left to right, right to left, upside down, as well as turning it around. the reason is, well, twofold. One is your eyes get used to what you're looking at, so you don't see errors because you've seen them that many times. Your eyes, brain disregard them. So if you flip it, you get a new perspective on what it is you're working on, and all of a sudden errors that was hidden from you before now become extremely visible. The other thing is you tend to get used to things like colour as well, and especially with light colours like in pyrography and with sort of fairly bright lights here, it can be difficult to see what the colours actually are. So again, looking away and coming back with fresh eyes sometimes gives you a slightly different view of colour and makes it easier then to proceed from there. Now at this point I am doing two things. I'm slowing down, and I might actually turn the heat up a little bit in a minute, but just to make sure I'm adding more heat and I'm getting more colour. So slowing down increases the quantity of heat that you're applying. And the other thing is I'm now making sure I go right up to the edge, if not slightly over the edge, because I don't want any white areas in around here. Now this wood sort of goes up, butts up against each other, and where it doesn't, it's dark and black in between. So I need to make sure I lose any of the uncoloured wood. So again, this sort of varies. Creosoting again, and the effects of rain and weathering have changed what's coloured and what isn't coloured on here. So it's not all a single colour, it does vary as we go down. This upper area is quite dark though, it's darker than this, so I will be going over it again in a minute. Now one thing I could do at this stage actually is differentiate between the two sides, the front and the side, because this is a corner piece of wood. And if I do that, then any pyrography I apply over the top, providing I do it evenly across both bits, they would both go darker together. But with small areas like this where I want to be need to be fairly precise, then it's actually easier to get my principal colour for the front here, which is lighter, and then darken down here afterwards, just because it's easier to do that sort of once or twice than it is to go over the top with a smooth coat and apply a smooth colour across top and bottom in this particular case. So now I'll go back over this again because I want it to be darker, and I'll need to darken the edge of that board as well. What am I looking at there? I've got a line across the top there. That's just where that board is. Okay. got to keep in mind always what it is that you're working on, where the ends of it is, because you don't want to go over something that you meant to leave uncoloured or meant to leave lighter than you've suddenly made it. So again, I'm working slow. I could work faster by turning the heat up, and I may get impatient enough to do that, but working slowly does mean that I can make sure that the colour is spread out and actually matches. Zoom zoom! Hello, welcome! Oh, another raid this evening. Hello Paul Pape, how are you today? Gallo May Artist, hello. What have you been broadcasting today, Paul? I'm doing fine, thank you very much. It's been, despite what Sarah's, because I've been watching Sarah all day, despite what she's been having the troubles over there in the Netherlands, it's been relatively cool in the office where I work today. What are we up in here? Only about 25 degrees. Although now that I've shut the doors, it is warming up. You're finishing up a World of Warcraft theme ring box. Okay, that sounds good. He was torturing you with music. I'm doing the same thing. We'll have to watch the recording and see what that is. The only well, I think I showed the other night, didn't I? The only theme stuff I've done recently has been from which card game is it now? Oh, I've gone and it's one I don't play. I cannot remember. I did a couple of pyrographic items and a carving. And Gallo May Artist. That's a little bit of a tongue twister to say, is that Gallo May Artist? But thank you very much for the follow. It's very kind of you. Yeah, what? Hearthstone or Hearthstone. Can't remember. Yeah, that was the yeah. That was the carving. I haven't yet decided whether to actually put any colour on there. But I did it. Yeah, I did. Yeah. So that's the only themed work I've done for a while. I kind of like watching or even doing themed work. Just be a bit careful sometimes with copyright there. Thank you, Paul. Oh, Gallo. Well, that makes it easy. Well, if you start then talking about Gallo humour, then I wonder if the two pyrography items are over there. I shall just disappear off camera. I'll show you those. Actually, it's a while. Well, I was about to say I actually have done something else themed, but it's a while ago that I did this. This is just a box with that's Link from Zelda. It's a Zelda coat of arms. Thanks very much, Paul. Thanks for the raid, and have a good evening. Hope I'll see you again sometime. Yeah, that was what the carving was done of. No, that's a cat. I'm trying to think, where's the other? Oh, that's the other one. So, Hearthstone cards. I found those quite fun to do, actually. And just since I got, before I go back to working on this, just since I got the whole pile of them out, there was that's another one that got done fairly recently. It's about 6 months old now, and there's a heck of a lot of hair on that lion. I won't say I did every hair strand that's on it, but there's not every hair strand that would be on the lion, but there's a lot on there, all done individually. And that's an early one, but that's Salute to Sunset. So it's an elephant with the giraffe in the background. It looks better in person than it does on the camera, I think, but there we go. Thank you very much, Gallo. I like monochrome work, so pyrography is quite nice for that. And by comparison, this is kind of simple, but it does have its own challenges, as every piece tends to do. Let's turn this up a little bit. You guys from Paul's stream are all really quiet, aren't you? Don't tell me that you're captivated completely by this shed. So how was Paul's stream? I haven't had a chance to watch one of them just yet. So I might have to just watch a recording, but. Have to see what this music was that you were tortured with, I guess. Clay's cheaper? You're playing Unreal Tournament at the same time, Famicom. Okay, well that's a good enough thing to do. I often do 2 or 3 things at the same time. Not only do you get someone talking in the background, you get some music, which is okay, it's nice music, and you get to play one of your, I was going to say favourite games, hopefully it is, at the same time. Why is clay cheaper, Gallo? I mean, if I was about to say, if you dig it up out of the ground, then perhaps, but I wouldn't have thought it was. Oh, you get into. Is that something? Is that by invitation, Famicom, or is it actually a sort of a public type pre-alpha? Actually, pre-alphas usually aren't public, are they? So I guess you've been invited to play. Those Hearthstone were pre-release pictures as well that I was working from when I did those. So. I mean, I guess buying the pyrography stuff to start with is probably a little pricey, Gallo, but then sort of, well, this is plywood, 24mm thick, birch plywood. It's not cheap, but I'm guessing it's I don't actually know how much clay costs, so. Oh, it is public. Okay. Oh, I see. They're doing they're working on the community stuff. I don't play it, to be honest, so it's not a game I'm familiar with. I did notice in the I was going to say M3, the recent game conference. There did seem to be quite a few developers that want to work with community developed content these days. Oh, okay. I know of Taylor Swift, but I don't actually. Well, I may know the music, the songs, but I don't know them without actually sort of hearing them, if you see what I mean. Oh, I see. I was kind of thinking when you said clay, it's sort of big sacks of clay that potter's wheels and stuff. You mean you sort of model with clay and polymer clay? Okay. Sometimes I've looked at that. As you might have gathered by now, I kind of just like doing lots of things. I just like creating things, and I've looked at things like the polymer clay before, and I keep looking at it. I haven't got as far as actually picking any up and deciding to try any just yet, but and I may or may not do that. My 3D work is nowhere near as good as my 2D work, so it's something I ought to practice, and the carving is sort of a cross. It's not quite 3D and it's not quite 2D, with it being relief carving. It's sort of, I call it 2.5D, and you often use like a compressed perspective on it. So when I have tried to translate that into 3D carving, for example, then my shapes tend to be off somewhat, but it's practice. Yes, I was about to say yes, by all means, Gallo, but I'll need to permit you first, otherwise the bot will time you out. So just bear with me a second whilst I do that. I have to use a touch screen here, so my typing isn't as fast as it would be with a keyboard. There you go. He says, actually, I'm not even sure I can log in from this computer, but we'll still see. Or if I'm logged in on this computer for Instagram, but I can always then take a look after the stream as well. Because I do like looking at what other people have done. Commander Root, thank you very much for the follow, that's kind of you. Oh wow. I kind of, well, the first picture I saw is the dragon, and I quite like the dragon. Oh, they're neater, those. And your workbench is a lot neater than mine usually is, I'll say that. Okay, interesting. I like the palette that you use. Was that painting a precast figurine, or have you actually moulded the figurine as well? I'm looking at, I don't actually know what it is. Interestingly, the eye that I'm just looking at, that seems to be quite popular in a lot of different art forms. See it a lot in glasswork as well. Sometimes it's clear. Yeah, it's kind of unusual for mine to be honest. Although you're only seeing this bit, you're not seeing the other section over there, which has got all stuff piled on it. including a half completed 3D printer, which I really ought to get around to finishing. Is that Deadpool? I mean, I'm making comments here, and you can't actually see which photograph I'm looking at, but and the dragon on the armature. Okay. Oh, they're really lovely, are these? I really like them. And the picture of the pussycat. They all love boxes. Don't know what it is about boxes and cats. Oh, I like those. They're really good. Oh, another picture of a pussycat. Oh, I see yours visit as well. I'm using a standing desk at the moment, so they don't usually jump up on this one. They occasionally will jump up on the other desk to one side and then come up on here, but there's only a couple of them will actually visit the top of the desk. Yeah, I do. I like those. Well, I shall leave that on here, and I'll have a look further after the stream, because otherwise I'll just keep going down and down and down until I hit the bottom. Do you stream at all, Lengala? Or are they all just done off stream? Now then, what I want to do now is on here. Now that what I want to do is now make this is a corner piece, so I've got to make half of it, this lower half as it is here, darker than the front half, so that it sort of has a corner in it. Now in practice this is actually quite a subtle difference in colour, but I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit just for artistic license. It makes it easier to see. There isn't a lot of difference in colour, but by exaggerating it just a little bit, it won't look particularly odd. Oh, well, it won't look odd at all, but it will just make the corner easy to see, which unfortunately you can't see on camera. But again, when I look at it here, I can now see this piece of wood turn, turns a corner. I'm really going to have to work on getting this camera to show. It's really difficult with pyrography because it tends to be dark, and the wood around it tends to be light, and it's one heck of a lot of contrast. And unfortunately, one of the problems with the Logitech cameras, if I turn the gain of it down or the contrast up to see some of these details, the camera starts breathing, is the description I call it. It sort of doesn't quite change focus, but doesn't quite keep the same level of brightness either. It's a real sort of breathing effect, which is really irritating to see. Oh, I'd love to see that. See if you do ever stream Gallo. I'd love to see some of those things made. Let me just. Now that's great, is this? Because let me do that. Now then, what I need to do now at this point is work out what all these icons mean. That's not what I'm looking to do. That's ban. That's timeout. That's something else. Oh, I didn't know I could do that from here. See that. Okay, that'll work. What I'm trying to do, Gallo, is I was trying to follow you so that, there we go, so that if you do broadcast, I'll get the notification and I'll be able to see what you do. Because I do like sort of seeing some of what I would describe as the physical arts on Twitch. You get a lot of electronic artists, and there's a couple of them I watch quite a lot of, have done, but there always seems to be less artists who actually work with. I mean, there's nothing wrong with electronic painting at all. I do a lot of it myself, but I do like to see people who actually make something, whether it's a model, whether it's clay, like C-Nut Bush when he's doing the modelling of those things, whether it's pyrography. There's a few pyrography artists, carving, chain, all of these things that are described as physical arts. And I do like seeing people actually making something, and it's kind of it's my quirk, I guess. I mean, making a electronic picture is still making something, it's still doing something, but there's just a lot of them. So I like to see something different sometimes. Perhaps that's a better way of digging myself out the hole I was gradually getting into there. So does anybody else that's been watching, that's watching now, that's been watching Paul, do any art of or creative stuff? It does seem to be that a lot of people who watch do like to do some things, some creative stuff themselves. And if you do stream yourself, feel free to say. I don't mind too much as long as people get to. Yeah, it's going on for something like about 2 years ago now. When I used to watch Twitch. I can't remember when I started watching Twitch. Quite some time ago now, and I used to watch the games. And one of the I can't remember. Well, one of the games I used to watch was Minecraft, and they from time to time I used to see an electronic artist, streaming in the Minecraft category. This was back before creative existed originally, and I used to follow him and watch him whenever he was broadcasting. And then Twitch Creative launched, but I didn't know at the time. And then at one point I saw him broadcasting, and it was sort of the game said creative. What on earth is this? So when his stream finished, what's this creative thing? So I went to look at that, and I'm almost saying I haven't watched the game since. That's not quite true. But I have, I watch creative almost exclusively these days, and it really tends to be more a case of, if I can't actually find somebody doing something on creative that I'm interested in watching, then I'll watch a game. But it's very rare these days that I do actually watch games. There's only about one broadcaster that I do watch on a game broadcaster I do watch on a regular basis. So yes, I kind of agree with your comment there, Gallo. That's one reason why I watch Sarah, or have started watching Sarah now. I mean, glass blowing, glass working is something that has fascinated me. I've watched for as long as I can remember, and that's quite a long time ago now. and so I would always stand and watch glass blowers at in shops or wherever. I'd stand and watch them for hours. So at least Twitch has made it easier on old men like me. I can sit down at a desk now and watch. I do really find it kind of amazing just how many ways people have of creating things. I mean, it's a daft thing to say, but if you do look through Twitch and you see people carving using lathes, metal workers, I've seen people making pipes, as in wind instruments, flutes, wind flutes. I think one time somebody was making a didgeridoo, and then you've got the potters, you've got the carvers, and the clay artists and the model artists, and then you get the cosplayers who are making things out of nothing. And I don't know, it's just so amazing to see, and you get to see it all in one place. You just look through and I don't think I don't think I've actually watched television for about the past year or so. I watch Twitch now. Generally creative, as I said. About the only thing I'll be watching on television is going to be Doctor Who when the next series starts. And yes, that's on Twitch as well at the moment. Oh, okay. Oh, he's been doing. He's been teaching things. That's good. That's the kind of stream I like. Because, sorry, I'm just concentrating a little bit. I love watching streams where people explain what they're doing as they're doing it, whether they're doing it sort of explicitly teaching style or whether they're just explaining what they're doing, because I find that fascinating. You learn something as you go along. TV is what I pay the license for other people to watch. But yeah, Doctor Who. It is about the only program I will watch, and it's going to be interesting to see the new Doctor. It must be starting soon here in the UK, I think, because that must be some form of I would say advertising, with Twitch doing the broadcasting. Yeah, I love watching streams where people explain what they do, just because it gives you a feeling that an understanding that you could try it. And a lot of these things, whilst they look really hard to do, actually aren't necessarily as hard as they seem when you've got somebody explaining how to do it. And whilst I'm not doing a fantastic job of that now, I do tend to do the same thing whilst I'm broadcasting, sort of explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Because one thing I kind of hated when I first wanted to try pyrography, for example, I did watch quite a few YouTube videos, and just to get, I thought it'd be an interesting thing to do, and so I wanted to get a feel for what it was before you go out and buy equipment. And I watched quite a few YouTube videos, and the sort of YouTube videos of that style which really annoy me are the ones that go, this is how to pyrograph a cat. You do this, and this. And it's kind of like, yeah, okay, but why? Why do you do that? Because now that I've got experience of pyrography, there's more than one way to do pyrography. There's more than one style. There's more than one way of using a pen. There's more than one way of applying the colour. Some work better than others. And when somebody does a, this is how you do it, and it's kind of like, okay, well, what if I want to do a dog? Is it the same? And you don't know, because they've said this is how you do a cat. And then next month they may do this is how you do a dog. So do you have to wait a month to see how to do a dog? And what happens if they've done a Chihuahua and you want to do a Great Dane? and I think really, it sort of really wound me up a little bit. So whenever I'm starting to explain this sort of thing, usually what I do is I'll start and say, I will sort of say, this is how I'm doing it. This is why I'm doing it this way. There are other ways of doing it, If you find a different way of doing it, great. But, if I want to do fur, this is how I do fur. So, you can apply that to whether it's a mouse or whether it's a cat or whether it's a dog or whether it's a velvet cushion, because that's kind of like fur. You've got an idea, try and do that. So that's and that's it's partly one of the reasons why I started broadcasting was that, but the other one was because I got dared into doing it. So I did. It sounds like I'm going to have to definitely watch Paul. But it sounds like he's going to he's broadcasting whilst I'm at work or making my evening meal or just starting my own broadcast. So I'm probably going to end up having to watch the recordings. Free art class without answering anything. Yeah, you're right. They are. There are a few. There's a few whatever you look for on YouTube, which I find really good, and I can watch them for hours. The ones that just say this is how you do it, generally speaking, I don't last very long on those. On those channels. Same on Twitch actually. If somebody's just saying this is how you do a, then I tend to move on. So at this point everybody disappears because I'm not saying how I'm doing this at all. Or even why. Ah dear. So maybe I ought to do some of what I'm saying. So so here we go. What I'm actually going to just do now is overlay a little bit more colour on here. There's a light edge here which I want to get rid of because this is a fairly consistent board. One of the tricks a lot of people I have had say to me in the past, how on earth, how do you do a shed? Because I'm working on the shed here, so I've never done one before, so nobody's ever actually asked that question. But whether it was a cat or whether it was a person or whatever it is I've done, I think I've done a monorail as well, or some of the things I showed earlier, the lion for example. Yeah, how on earth do you do that? How, where do you start, and just how do you get whatever it is? And the thing that everybody has a problem with something like pyrography, and I guess drawing is another one, is they look at the whole thing and they go, I couldn't do something like that. And I feel the same way myself quite a lot of the time. But what actually I do with this is I break it down. So at this moment in time I'm not doing a shed, I'm doing this little box here, and I'm just concentrating on this little box. And when I look at my reference picture for this, I've got a dark area just here on this little box, so I'm just going to make a darker area just across here. So and because I'm vaguely following the thing, if I was doing something like a person, what I might do, well, I'll be working on just an eye, for example. You don't look at the other eye, just look at the one eye. And sometimes one of the things I have said to people that find it a real difficult is if you got something like your reference picture, or even something like the pyrography picture, A good thing to do is to take a piece of paper that's this size and cut a small square out of it and just lay that over whatever you're working on, whether it's using a reference picture or doing it on here, and just work in that little square that you've cut out, and move that around the picture, if you see what I mean. So each time you're only working in the little squares, and you find very quickly you've done something, a complete thing, without looking at the whole thing, and you're not intimidated as much by this little square. It only works so far because you tend to then have to go back afterwards and colour correct between all your little squares, but at least you've got started and got through quite a lot of stuff, you know, and without looking at the whole thing and just going, how do I do that? Because I still do that. Even now I look at this and I just go, I don't know where to start. And ultimately what I then do is I just sort of go, close my eyes and go, I'm going to start there. Now 9 out of 10 times I kind of go, you know, I'll put my finger down at it and go, well, I can't start out there, but you know what I mean. You just find somewhere and just start from there and just look at that bit, and it becomes a lot less intimidating. There's a phrase which is used by artists or people who do pencil work a lot, because they're drawing, and the phrase is draw what you see, not what you think. You know, and quite often that is what throws you out. Is, you know, I'm drawing a shed here. A shed should be rectangular, shouldn't it? There's nothing rectangular on here. You know, this side is shorter than that side because of perspective. If you're not careful, you know, you think lines should be horizontal, but they are, but they're not because of perspective. And if you start trying to do it from what you think it should be, it comes out wrong. You've always got to just look at something and go, you know what, the line goes that way, I don't care that it looks, you know, that's what I see, that's what I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do now is carry on with this particular board, and that whole line there wants to be darker. I can see that from my diagram, and I'm going to my picture that's in front of me. So I've turned the tool up in this particular case because I want to do this as kind of one pass. I often layer colour, but for something like this, which I want to go really dark, it's often better with this tool to do that in one go, to go right to the final dark colour. And I want to basically to go as black as possible. Now I'm not using extremely high heat here, but I'm using high enough heat that it does go black straight away, and that's on a per tool basis, so you have to learn that for each of your tools. Okay Gala, well thank you for dropping in and for chatting. It's been nice talking to you. Hopefully I'll see your stream at some point, but obviously feel free to drop in. Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays is when I generally stream, occasionally other times, but that at the moment is the scheduled times from 7 PM UK for a couple of hours. But I might be doing glass in a few weeks, and that may be more often. But again, thank you for dropping in. Okay, now I've got my black line in place there now. Yep. I've overlapped the edge a little bit there, and so it kind of looks like this black line has come over into this edge block of wood here. It actually hasn't, because that was a blob that was created there when I did the side. But what I want to do now is, because it looks like it's coming across there, I need to disguise it a little bit. What I'm going to do is just colour this area here, this edge area here, by applying a little bit more heat to it and darkening it down, and I'm just extending the dark area a little bit, just above and below where the blob is. So I'm disguising the mistake, if you like, by just adjusting what's around it. Now I need to make it as dark, because the blob unfortunately went really dark when I touched the tool down. It was hotter than I expected it to be, and it created a dark mark. You can't erase with pyrography, or rather you sort of can, but not really. So you sometimes have to sort of disguise things, like I've kind of just done a little bit there. It's now less noticeable is the blob that's there, and this line doesn't now doesn't appear to go over the edge. It still needs to be a little bit darker actually, and I need a bit hotter tool for that. Because this line here is already dark, it's quite difficult to, it needs a lot more heat, quantity of heat, to make it go darker than if it was light. That's one reason why I try and do that in one pass, because otherwise you've got to apply a heck of a lot of heat. If something's quite dark, you're cooking, effectively the colour is cooking. Okay, if you're still here, Gallo, it'll be about 4 weeks, I think. The shed, as I mentioned, is being I mentioned on the last stream, is being replaced. Its replacement, which will look similar, is where the glasswork is going to be done inside. This is going to take a couple of weeks to do, and then a couple of weeks to get some, to get the kid and set up and things. So about 4 weeks. And yeah, so pyrography is more a cooking process than an actual burning process, because as you might have noticed, there's no flames. And there are some artists that do use flames. They use blowtorches and acetylene torches. I'm not one of them, and I don't do it in the house. Well, I wouldn't do it in the house because I don't do it anyway. But they're generally working on humongous, great big, sheets of wood, which you kind of have to do when you're using a flame that's that long to make your colours. But they, I forgot the point of what I was talking about then. But it's cooking, yes. A bit like maple syrup. If you know how maple syrup is made, it's the sap of the maple tree, which is then cooked. It's heated, and as it's heated, it goes an orangey browny colour and thickens. Never had any, but I know that's how it's done. This is kind of the same thing. It's the liquid contents of the wood are fibres which are being cooked, and it's the brown is coming from that. So it's not a charring effect, because the tool isn't hot enough, and charring is kind of overcooking. I mean, you see the same thing happening if you do any cooking in an oven. You put a piece of meat in an oven and you turn the heat up really high and leave it for a while, it will come out charred. No flames, it's just purely the cooking has cooked and cooked and cooked and cooked and overcooked. And we're doing exactly the same thing with wood. And incidentally, that's how they make charcoal. They cook wood in an oven, and they cook all the water out of it basically, and it goes dark, and that's how you get charcoal, which is why charcoal still burns. If you'd burnt the wood, you wouldn't have charcoal at the end of it, which is burnable. So there we go. So it's a cooking process. Now I'm going to do is cook this a little bit more and make it darker, because the whole board is a sort of a darky sort of colour. It's only as I come down here where I've got a darker and a lighter area underneath it, which is the wood preservative, which has been washed off. So again, normally when I'm working, or when I'm working with pyrography and other people are working with pyrography, one of the things you try really hard to do is usually to get smooth application of the colour. And I say application, I mean the colour is coming out of the wood. sometimes it very much feels like you're almost painting it on. The colours coming out the end of the tool. It kind of does feel like that at times, but of course it isn't. And usually you're trying to get a really sort of smooth application here. If you want to do somebody's face, you want smooth skin. You don't want all blotches and things. But in this particular case, the wood planks have character. They've got a grain, they've got a texture, and it's sort of counter to what you normally want to do. I don't want this to be really dead smooth colour. I do want it to have sort of variations in it, some bits lighter and darker than others, and it can be quite quite challenging when you're used to trying to make things really smooth and unique, single colour, to actually sort of come back and make it not so. So one of the tricks I've found for me is, not to start and work my way down, but just to go backwards and forwards in different areas, doing small strokes, which is creating sort of lots of small lines, if you like, around the place. And unfortunately I can't really show it too well, but that's making a texture. It's getting some areas which are lighter and some areas are darker, and then what I can do is go over the top with a more smooth colour. Now if you make a smooth colour, it's like working with a transparent paint over the top of something that's already on the wood. If you keep a smooth colour all the way across, then the bits that were dark sort of go darker, and the bits that were light go the same amount darker, so they sort of they track each other coming down in darkness. Until eventually you get to the point where it's so dark this doesn't change, and then this will meet it, but that's almost black. But for sort of the lighter shades, you can then go over and you've got the texture underneath it, and by going over the top as well, it smooths it out a little bit. It's almost as though you've sort of re-wet paint, or you've pushed. If you put sort of maple syrup or something similar down on your bread, you then push it around a little bit to smooth it out, and that sort of takes away some of the sharp edges that you might have got from the lines that you put down to create a texture to start with, which then helps make it look not too unnatural. So it is sawn wood unnatural, but it sort of doesn't make it look as much sort of like you've just drawn lots of lines on there. It looks more like the natural sort of texture of the grain of the wood. Okay, so now I want this to be a bit darker. Now I can get this darker. The colour comes from the quantity of heat that's been applied. So the more quantity of heat, the darker the wood becomes. And you can apply heat quantity in two ways. You can either take a high heat and apply it for a short length of time, or you can take a low heat and apply it for a longer period of time. To get quantity X, the two multiplied time by heat gives you a quantity. I mean, that's kind of a loose explanation. So I can either get a dark colour by turning the heat up, and then I have to work quite quickly, or I can have it low down. Hello Ace, thank you very much for the host, that's fantastic. How did your stream go today? I saw you were broadcasting, but I was working and I wasn't able to watch you today. Ace, by the way, is a relief carve. Well, he's doing relief carving at the moment. Have you finished the bear, Ace, or are you still working on it? So Ace does something like, I showed the feral gibber earlier. Ace works at a more shallow level than that, but yeah, sometimes I need to concentrate. Sometimes I can leave it in the background. Sometimes I need to concentrate. Today was kind of one of the days of concentrating. Unfortunately, I can't shout out your channel as such, but check Ace's channel out if you have the interest in wood carving. It's stained and dry. I missed the staining. Okay, he's done some really interesting sort of wood carvings. Again, that's a different that's a different style of carving from the 3D carving. I do deep relief carving. Ace is doing shallow relief carving, and he then stains the wood afterwards. He's applying a colouring over the top. So again, it's a different style of carving, which can be interesting to do as well. Actually, it can be really challenging to do. Sometimes the shallow stuff that Ace I've seen do can be a lot harder to do than the deep relief carving. Just because to get that, so that you've got a false perspective sometimes, just to make people think something looks deeper than it actually is. Okay, I'm going to come and do one of these boards down here just to move away, just to give my eyes. Helps me, sometimes helps other people as well, because I've heard it mentioned, by working somewhere else. Your eyes kind of get used to what they're seeing, so you don't see things which aren't quite right because you've just got used to seeing them quite a bit. If you go work somewhere else and then maybe come back, you suddenly go, oh blimey, that's wrong, and then you can fix it. So I do tend to dot around the picture quite a bit when I'm working on pyrography, or any other thing as well. So as I've got the tool quite warm at the moment, I'm going to do some of the darker areas of wood down here. Oh yes, just for fun, I just stuck a bit of a knot in there. Now getting rapid colour changes like I'm doing here can be quite fun at times, but you really do have to feel confident that that's what you want, because as I mentioned earlier, you can't easily erase. The only way you can erase pyrography is the colour is sat on the surface, or just about on the surface, and the way to erase it is to remove the surface. It's not like a pencil mark, which is only lightly bonded to the surface. This stuff, you've literally cut the surface. It is the surface that's changed colour. So the only way you have is to remove that surface. You do that either with something like a sharp knife or a scraper, or you do it with something like sandpaper. The difficulty you have then, either of those two methods change the surface texture. Now If you don't want to apply pyrography over the top of it again, that's okay. I use that technique for cat's whiskers. So once I've done the cat and everywhere the whiskers are going to go, once that's all done pyrography to the final level that I want it to be, I'll then take something like a scalpel and scrape the whisker so it becomes white, or the wood colour, so it looks white. And that I've sort of erased where the whisker was, if you like. If you try and put pyrography back over the top of it, though, if I try to go, oh, I didn't want that whisker there, and try and fill it in, I can't. It's always visible. It might be the same colour, but you can see the texture difference. You always can see the texture difference. And even something as simple as having sticky tape on the board. If you take the sticky tape off, then that's disturbed the texture of the surface. And if you were to apply pyrography over the top of it, where the sticky tape was got nothing to do with the sticky bit, just the fact it's disrupted the surface. You can see where the tape used to be. So if you ever you buy boards like this and they're stuck together with tape, take the tape off, you then have to sand the whole board. You can't just even sand the bit where the tape was, because then that texture is different to elsewhere. I mean, you should sand pyrography boards before you apply pyrography. It smooths the surface down a little bit. It stops it looking hairy, because that's what happens if you don't sand it down. And it also tends to close up the pores a little bit, which also helps with getting smooth colour. But if you remove some tape or something, you've got to sand the whole thing down. I mean, this was sanded down ultimately with what this is described as wet and dry paper. It's this stuff. This is quite fine. This is 15. Oh, this is 400. I've got some 15. Here we go. I was using some 1500 grade, and this stuff is, I mean, it doesn't even feel rough. Oh yes, of course, Ace does some pyrography as well. Sorry Ace, yes you do. You do some pyrography as well. So you sort of can go back as long as you don't want to put pyrography over the top of it again. The other way, if you make a mistake, kind of like I did up here, which I got a blob, is you adjust things around it so that your mistake disappears, either by literally covering it over with something, some more pyrography, as I kind of did there, and adjusted the angles a little bit. Or if it's just something as simple as you've gone too dark in an area, like here, if I'd gone too dark in an area and I didn't actually want this to be this dark, you're seeing it dark because of the contrast between this and this. So this looks white to you, this looks quite dark, and this is sort of somewhere in between. So this looks really dark compared to here, but if I put some colour onto this, like this, now unfortunately you're not seeing that too well. Let me darken this down a little bit more. But now if you were to see that in better close-up, shall we say, that doesn't look as dark now as it did before, because you're comparing that with this instead of that with the white of the wood. And yes, it's all about the illusion, and playing with what your brain and eye do. Your brain is an amazing thing. It does some really weird things though sometimes. When you're applying pyrography like this, there are occasions where you can see a completely different colour. I mean, it's the internet dress, but you can see a completely different colour. You're seeing this wood as being white. Partly that's the camera that's doing this, but even here in person, you tend to see this wood as white because of the darker that's on it. It's not white. It's nowhere near white. It's a woody colour. It's a light wood, but it's nowhere near white, but it kind of looks that way. And you stop seeing this as brown after a while as well. You might see, some people see like shades of grey. Kind of looks greyish, and it's not, it's brown. You can also see colours like yellows and greens in it sometimes, and I notice that quite a lot when you're doing eyes, or when I'm doing eyes. I don't know whether it's the way I draw the irises, the coloured part of your eye with the lines, so a sort of a fringing effect or something like that you see sometimes on televisions. But you can see yellows and greens sometimes, and they're not there. It's just brown. It's weird. And of course, the optical illusion of just where colours might be, or the shape of things, mean you see all sorts of things which you're seeing the end of a shed at right angles to this. It's a flat piece of board. There's no bend in it. Well, there's a little bit of a bend in it, but there's no sort of sharp bend in it. And you're looking at these, and I'm sure you're seeing this board overlaps that, and overlaps that. But it is a flat piece of wood. It's a weird thing. Oh, incidentally, by the way, I'm using plywood here. I sometimes get asked why. Now, this board actually has a warp on it. It had a warp on it before I started, but I didn't want to use the backside, partly because it's got a big tape mark on it. I don't know if you can see that. You can't quite. The sort of here, there's a wide mark down here where tape has been ripped off, and I did not want to try and sand that away. Same on that side. And I've also got a big line across here which I didn't want, which is why I'm not using that side. I use this side. But the reason I use birch plywood is if I didn't, and I've got to use something like 1/4 inch thick board, something about this sort of thickness, he says, blocking the camera. And if I'm going to use a board something like about that thick, and this one has actually warped, as you can see, even though this is a really light pyrography, that is enough to warp the board, even a fairly thick board like this. And if I do a full amount of pyrography, even on a board like this, it does sometimes warp quite a bit, because when you cook the wood on the surface, it's like, well, if you do any cooking at all, when you cook meat, it does the same thing. The surface shrinks and it pulls the surface, which then causes the board to warp. Plywood, because of the way it's constructed, with wood goes in different directions through the different plies, that tends to resist that pulling effect, and the boat stays a lot flatter, given that it's only sort of 4mm plywood. So it's a good wood for pyrography, and it's also sort of somewhat cheaper than buying the thick stuff. Right, talking about illusion, I shall do some more darkness around here. Now, I've got a crack line across there. As I apply this pyrography, that crack line may disappear. If it does, I will literally just have to go over and darken it again. Now I've got to be a little bit careful, because I was starting to make a mistake there. And the mistake I was starting to make was I want to go more or less fill this triangle in here, and I was starting to do that, but the board is a piece of wood where the grain is going that way. If I do this, and I've started, I'm making the grain look like it's going that way, which kind of looks odd. It's not expected. It's the sort of thing that jars your head, and you go, there's something wrong with that, but I don't know what it is. you always try in this, especially in this style, is to continue when you apply colour, apply pyrography, to do it in the direction that the whatever it is you're doing goes. So if I was doing water and it was flowing that way, I'd be doing water in the flow direction. If I was doing hair, I would be doing it in the direction of the hair, follow the hair direction. Here I'm doing it in wood grain, following the wood grain, because that way any marks that do show up will look like wood grain, and your eye will see them in the right direction, and your brain doesn't go, something wrong there. You know, you get that weird sort of feeling, and not quite, something's out. So always try and follow the flow of whatever it is that you're doing, and it will look a lot better. Incidentally, you do the same thing often with other stuff as well. I certainly do the same thing when I'm airbrushing, or if I guess I haven't done any physical painting, but I'm guessing you do the same thing often with physical painting, so you get the brush marks that, you know, follow the hair or something like that as well. Now I've sort of put another knot in there, and I've got to put myself a couple of sort of rings just to add a little bit of interest to this bit of the board. Now what I'm going to do is go over that lightly and go over it again multiple times. If I do that, rather than trying to do it all in one go, what I'll be doing is also darkening down the lines that I've just put in, so they will stay there without me necessarily having to go in and reinforce them every time. Now unfortunately you can't see it, I'm seeing them still be there, and it's kind of a useful trick. If I'd gone in and tried to go really dark in one pass, I'd burn those out, they'd disappear. But because I'm going over it in multiple layers, then they're staying there, they're getting darker the same amount as the spaces between. I may have to reinforce them a little bit, but I may just look at it and go, you know what, I quite like it like that, I'll leave it. So sometimes going over it it's almost like a transparent layer, it's a tinted transparent layer. Doing that allows you to keep your detail that you've already put in underneath, rather than, you know, trying to go really dark to start with. So you often do find a use for using, you know, transparent pyrography, as I would describe it as, and going in and laying multiple colours down. It also does give you a greater depth of colour, because you start to see through some of the upper layers. Again, it's a subtle sort of effect, but you do see sort of more depth in it, like a polished table appears to have more depth in it than a painted table. French polishers use that sort of technique quite a bit, lots of layers of polish to get depth, and it works quite well for most transparent things, like transparent airbrushing for example, gives you that as well. Now I will reinforce some of these lines I think a little bit, because I've now got down to a colour which is closer to being, I'm getting quite technical with this, but as you apply pyrography you do compress colours a little bit. I know I said earlier they follow each other down, but actually the lighter colours get darker slightly quicker, and you do reach a point where the detail does tend to disappear even with a transparent layer of the top, so it does need reinforcing if you get dark enough. Now then, what I'm going to do now, this whole board has a colour to it, so I'm going to apply a lighter shade across the whole board, and then adjust that in various places or to be the sort of shade that I want. And at this point I'm looking really just to take away the white effect. It looks really white, does this board to me, and it makes it harder for me to work out what the colours actually should be. Again, I mentioned earlier because you're comparing colour to white, everything looks darker than it should be. So sometimes what I will do is more or less go over the whole picture and just make it really a really light colour like this. At least if I'm sure I need at least this level of colour, I will go over quite large areas and then come back and work in the middle of it. It's what you sometimes see some artists do is instead of working with white paper, they'll work with grey paper. For that very reason, it's a neutral colour and they can judge colours better because it's not white. And I'm doing more or less the same thing. Not being too worried about, I am wanting it to be reasonably sort of neutral, same colour all the way across, but I'm not too worried if I get in patches or patchiness in it. Again, this is a natural wood. Now some bits across the top here, there and down this side of this, for example, they are really light. They're silver grey, and so I'm wanting to leave them at the moment because I do want that sort of contrast out of them. Now then, this looks a lot more closer to what I'm after, but still is a lot too light, so what I'll do now is start to darken this down. I've got on here, and this piece of wood particularly, you can see the grain, the ring marks. So what I'm going to do is tip my pen up a little bit and use just the edge, the sharp edge of the pen, and just put in some dark lines. I don't need a lot. Again, this is as Ash mentioned, it's kind of an illusion. You can see some and your brain interprets that as being able to see them all. And it just adds that little extra sort of texture or interest to the image when you look at it. Unfortunately, I will have to have a real good play with this camera. It's way. I've tried quite a lot of times to get a really good sort of image to see this sort of detail from, but unfortunately I'm not really being successful. So if anybody out there is really good at knowing how to adjust a C920 camera for high contrast images like this, that would be fantastic if they let me know how to do it. Yeah, I've applied some colour and I'm going and adding back in again some of these lines, just going over the top. Again, it's about layers, you're building layers on layers. And I can actually build colour just by putting lots and lots of these lines on. Now the only thing I'm going to be a little bit careful of is when I do that, I am actually sort of shaping the wood. I'm carving the wood a little bit. If I put too many on there, eventually sort of I'll get a bow, I'll get a cut surface in the wood, and it won't actually show up quite as nicely. So I will sort of smooth some of that down a little bit by putting colour on flat like this. So instead of using the tip now, I'm using the flat of the tool. But I have probably got enough sort of lines on there now. I may add some extra as I go along, but enough sort of lines on there now that it resembles the wood grain. I would say that unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, this style of pyrography does take quite a long time to do. As you can see, I'm applying colour, and I keep going back and applying more colour and creating layers. And 10-20 hours on something this board size is not unusual. In fact, if it was something like a bird, for example, you could easily spend 30 or 40 hours doing it to get all the sorts of the layers and the textures in place. You can do something like that a lot quicker. And I mean, it does come down to, some artists are really good at doing things. Some artists like me are a bit slower at doing things. So, everybody's different. The point I was kind of making is it's alright to take 40 hours to do something like this. It's more about you enjoying what you're doing and you like what you get at the end of it than it is about doing it fast. But there are some artists that probably could do a similar sort of thing fairly quickly. They might take 5 to 10 hours to do something like this, or to work with a bird. And what you do find is the more you work with some particular style. So I've done quite a few cats. I also do portraits. I'm better or more faster at working with those than I am working like with this shed. Again, it's something that's new to me, and I'm kind of working out how I want to do it as I go along. I'm finding out what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. I need to bring these colours closer to this edge. So I'm also working here not to create blobs. That's one of the problems you have to learn how to overcome, if you don't want them, that is, and that is the blobs that you get at the start and end of a stroke. I need to darken that down a bit more. What you can get is if I was to put my pen down, move it and lift it off, I get a dark area, a light line and a dark area. That's the blobs. Sometimes you want those, in which case that's how you do it. Sometimes you don't want those. In fact, often you don't want those. I don't often know of any situation. Maybe if I was doing dumbbells, then perhaps I might want that. But often you don't want those blobs to be there. And they're there for as I mentioned earlier, the colour is a result of the quantity of heat that's been applied. And if I put the tool down and then move it, because there's a finite time between me putting it down and starting to move it, I've applied more heat, a larger quantity of heat in that area than when it's moving, because it doesn't stay on any one particular point for very long. And so that's light because there's less quantity of heat, that's dark. And the way you get it in normal, avoid it in normal work, is to use that trick of when the pen is moving, it doesn't transfer heat, as much heat. So you make sure you're moving the pen before you touch it down. You keep it moving and you lift it off before you stop. The pen is never still when it's on the wood, it's always moving at the same speed and therefore applies the same amount of heat, same quantity of heat all the way across the line. All you have to learn then is to be able to touch down and lift off at the points that you want. That's practice. So I can in theory do that and lift off at the edge here, which is where I want to stop, without going over that line. Now exactly how good you are at doing it is practice, but it is also a little bit knowing the touch points on your tool, knowing where the edge of the tool is. If I did the same thing with the writing tip, for example, which is narrower, I then obviously have to go a little bit further. So, but I'm not really doing it by looking where the edge of the tool is. I'm actually doing it by looking at where the mark is that I'm creating as I do it. Now, it's a ragged edge board, and I might look at that and come back a little bit afterwards. I'm avoiding as much as possible doing that to fill it in. I really don't want to do that. It will look odd. I can do that on the edge of the board, but I can't do it on this flat side of the board. What I might end up having to do actually is go the other way. Sometimes you find it easier to start from an exact point than it is to finish on an exact point, and that's what I'm doing here now. I'm starting at that line. I'm actually just flicking away rather than being particularly smooth in the movement that I'm after, because I'm really only after the first bit of the line being coloured. The rest I don't really care about. In fact, I want it to just disappear, feather into what's already there. And now I've done away with the light edge that I had there before. Okay. Here endeth today's lesson. We're coming up to 9 o'clock. It's 2 minutes to 9. So rather than me start and do another bit, I'm nowhere near finished even on these boards I've done here. They're probably passable. That side's 95% done. I probably will come back and do another pass on there, or possibly even another 2 passes on this whole side here. One when I've done this, so I've got a contrast between the 2 bits. This is more in shadow, so I want this to be darker than that, but I have more, because this is lighter at the moment, I've got more scope to adjust that. So I'll get this bit right, which is the darker bit. Working with darker tones is, you've got less movement. You got, if you want something dark, take it a little bit darker. It's a subtle shade change when you're working at the darker levels is harder to see than to go from almost white to slightly less white. That's more noticeable to your eye. So I'll get the darker tones more what I'm after, and then adjust any of the lighter tones to match what I'm looking for with the darker one. But there's one of the things I haven't yet decided is what to do all the way around here. It's on grass, there's trees all the way around. I may put some of that in, I may not. It's quite a lot of work to put it in, so I may just put something in behind it, or I may leave it just open. I do have to put something in ground wise for this to sit on, otherwise it's floating in midair. I have kind of thought about, and I've never done it before, applying a green pencil, sort of grass marks. I've thought about doing that and then applying pyrography over the top of it, which will kind of cook it in, and especially since grass has got dirt underneath it, green, brown kind of goes together. The other thing I thought about is doing, as I would do, I mentioned earlier, doing like hair marks, which is lots of tiny lines, and then applying green ink, which will kind of soak into it. It will give a different look. So we'll have a two-tone, we'll have the brown with green for the grass. That might be an interesting thing, rather than just applying sort of grass like pyrography. I'm not sure, I might just try it just to see what it's like. And if I do that, then I may have to adjust these again. So it's a sort of a get the majority in before you go to your final colours. So yeah, we will sort of revisit all of this quite a bit over the time of completing the whole picture. And as I say, I haven't yet decided what to do. And if I don't put trees in, it's a blue sky. Well, do I leave that wood colour? Do I apply some sort of colour to it, even if it's only a really pale colour? Or do I do something like go, you know what? It would look really good at sunset, because the brown colours, the orangey brown, nice sunset sort of colours. Maybe I could put some sort of sunset sky in the background. And these are the sorts of things you do, even though, you know, I've not planned out the whole picture, if you like, at this. I'm kind of making it up as I go along, seeing what I think is going to look right. And that's part of what you can do as an artist. And you know, I can try doing the sky, and if it fails, I can go, I'll tell you what, I'll make it a sunset sky, because then I can make it darker. So I can kind of hide the mistake in, I really intended to do that in the first place. I'm going to stop for now. I've had some more insight into how this might progress and how my mind works a little bit. My next stream will be on Monday. I suspect I'll continue with this. In fact, yes, I will continue with this. I'm due to finish off something else that I've been doing on stream, which is a remote control truck, articulated truck that I'm building. I've just been painting it. And the paint, you know, so it's going to be it's a nice shiny blue. I've just been clear coating this. I've got about another 3 pieces to paint the dashboard and the 2 seats. And once they're painted and coated, then I need to complete the build of that. But what I'll probably do that on an extra stream, like on a Tuesday or a Thursday perhaps, and just keep Monday, Wednesday and Friday. I'll do the pyrography for that, I think. So 7 PM UK time is when I start on either 3 days, or as close to that as I can get, allowing for the fact that I've worked all day and sometimes have to make an evening meal, because otherwise I tend to want to stop the stream a bit early just to go eat. So look out for me on Monday. If you'd like to see the start of this, then don't think Twitch has the first video of this anymore, but you can see all the videos on YouTube, youtube.com/Tharagonart. The pyrography is all in real time. If you want to see the truck, it's cut into short strips, but the pyrography is all in real time. It's the recording of the Twitch broadcast. So we're about in, this is part 6, this will be I think part 6, which means there's 10 hours of getting this far. Is it really that much? Wow, time goes quickly. Probably because I spend a lot of time talking and less doing what I should be doing, which is the art form, but that's part of the fun. So you can see that and any of the other pyrography items that I've done, like the feral gibber I showed earlier, any of the cats, the salute to sunset, the lion. They're all available there on YouTube if you want to see them. I do say they're in real time though. There's a lot of hours in the lion and things like that. So thanks for the raid, everybody. Those of you that are still here, thanks for continuing to watch. Hope I'll see you on the next stream. Those of you that followed this evening, thank you very much for doing that. Absolutely fantastic. UAS as well for hosting. That's absolutely fantastic. And I hope I'll see you all again on Monday's stream, and we'll carry on with this. Bye for now.